Today on Unfiltered with Jen Archuleta, I'm talking with Dr. Eloise Nelson, the founder of Ask Eloise. She has more than 45 years of experience in holistic nutrition, gut health, hormone balance, and anti-aging. She's known for taking complicated science and turning it into simple, practical steps people can actually use. She also has a new book coming out on the female microbiome and how women can better understand and balance their hormones. This is the kind of conversation people have been asking for and is packed with information you don't usually hear. Well, thanks for joining me. We had a great conversation the first time we talked. I think we talked for like an hour. You are so full of information. I can't wait to share your knowledge and your background and why you got into holistic health and all the things that we talked about. If you could tell me a little bit about where you started and why.
Okay, so I'm a huge foodie, and I grew up in a small town in Nebraska. And my mother and my grandmother always made food. And I just loved being in the kitchen with them. And my mom liked to go to all of the little farms around and get fresh eggs and fresh cream and fresh vegetables. And she always said, like, health is the number one thing. If you have your health, you have everything. So I grew up with that in my mind. And my mom made a lot of really good food, and I was always in charge of making food when she was gone, when she went out. Um, when I got into high school, and even before that, I had a pretty big sugar addiction. Even though I was eating healthy food, there was a little store next to our school, and I would get tons of candy and which wasn't that healthy. And then I had friends that had a lot of processed foods and snacks. And as I got older, um, drinking alcohol in high school and partying, I had irregular periods and, cramps. And I just didn't feel well around my period. And it was just always kind of accepted and that was fine. And um, then when I became a flight attendant, and even in college, um, we were still drinking alcohol and partying a lot, and I had a lot of issues with PMS and just skin issues and weight gain in college. And then when I was 20, my older sister was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And the doctors just said, hey, we don't really know why you have this disease. And my brother, who was also in college with me, he gave me a book called Survival into the 21st Century. And it was all about diet. And something just clicked in me. And when I read that, I was like, I really want to change my diet. So I became a vegetarian and I just started eating a really clean, healthy diet. And the result was that my periods started to get regular. I just started feeling a lot better. I felt like my elimination regulated. I just everything just sort of turned around, like things that you don't really think about, like is your brain health really there, like mentally I just felt way more stable, and my sleep was better, just everything was better. And I wasn't drinking anymore, and I just really started to take care of myself. And then I also started to notice that if I ate any processed food, I would get a lot of inflammation in my joints. And so that was a big indicator to me that I really needed to clean up my diet. But this was a long time ago. This is before anybody was really talking about health, nutrition, and diet. And I tried to get my sister to change her diet, and they just didn't believe it. The doctors just said, oh, this is a random disease. We don't know why you have it. And my grandfather also died with rheumatoid arthritis.
Mm.
So that was the whole inspiration for me. And like I said, I always love food. I love preparing food. And so I just really became obsessed with reading about nutrition, reading about diet, reading about health, and how it created health or would create disease and illness. And so that was my inspiration to get my PhD in holistic nutrition.
And your sister, how is she now?
Well, she's going to be 80.
Can I ask how old you are? Because you look amazing. 45 years in medicine,
I'm almost 72.
and you look absolutely amazing. So we're going to talk a lot about that, hopefully, because I think internally we should feel well, but aesthetically we should do the things to look as natural as possible.
Well, my sister, bless her heart, she's amazing. I
Mhm.
love her dearly. She's like one of the strongest people that I know.
Yeah.
Um, but she's had her joints replaced in her knees, her hips, her
Mhm.
hands are deformed. Um, they broke all of her toes so that she could walk and reset all of that. And she's basically just lived on Remicade since she was 28 years old.
Wow.
And, I was just determined that I wasn't going to go down that path. And I just, for some reason, I knew that it was about food and it was about, what we put in our diet. And I had a lot of direct experience that I shared with you about, eating airline food when I was a flight attendant and staying up late and partying and just how that really destroys your health.
Yeah.
So,
So we talked a little bit about you had a farm and things like that, and you guys, right? You guys had a farm.
community. My dad was actually an optometrist, but I had all these friends that lived on farms, and it was, 1,000 people in the town.
Yeah.
So we would go to all the farms to get, um, all of our vegetables and everything. And this was before Monsanto moved in and bought all the farms and turned them all into cornfields, GMO corn.
And we talked a lot about the pesticides and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit, like when we spoke in our conversation, just what you think about with the foods that are out there, even when we're buying organic and you think it's organic, and the processed food is not the processed food you were eating, it's even more processed. So, what would you tell somebody like when you go to the store, is organic, or when we talked about the apples with the wax on them?
Yeah. Well, I think the source of our food is really, really important, where it comes from. And, I think that some stores are more reliable than others. Like I have a natural grocers and they only carry organic food and the produce is beautiful. And, in the spring, the summer, and the fall, I go to the farmer's market and I buy organic food directly from the farmers. And I have a relationship with a lot of the farmers and I trust them that they are either they're transitioning or they're certified organic or they're not spraying. And so I think that it's really about doing your homework and figuring out where to source your food from. And then, I mean, we live in a toxic world. It's the way that it is. There's been huge assaults on our soil, and a lot of these farmers are doing everything that they can for regenerative farming and to bring the soil back to life. My husband's a big part of that. he's working on a project, and they just brought in 30,000 worms. They create a worm farm, and they just planted all these vegetables, and they're in the spring, once the ground unfreezes, they're gonna basically, till it and put it all back into the soil to regenerate it. And I think there's a lot of people doing really good things.
Mhm.
And so I think you need reliable sources. And is certified organic everything that it says that it is? I mean, I owned a natural foods company, for several companies, for years. And I can tell you that the non-GMO certification and the organic certification they're doing a really good job. They really get into, what your ingredients are, where you're sourcing them from. They're looking at, the C of A's. They're looking at spec sheets. So I think we have to be careful not to get too down the rabbit hole and feel like, oh, I can't eat this and I can't eat that and this is
Mhm.
toxic. And we have to do the very best that we can, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, so if you were to recommend a grocery store, like let's just rank them: Whole Foods, let's say Trader Joe's, Natural Grocers, if you have one. Which one would you go to first? You said Natural Grocers. What would be next for you?
Grocers first. I think Whole Foods has changed a lot. And so I think, one of the things about Whole Foods is it depends on the region that you're in. Because if you're in like a really upscale community, they're going to have more organic produce and their produce is going to be better.
Sprouts.
Um, I do think that Sprouts has some good produce. I know that Kehi is their distributor, and um, so we have a warehouse very close to the Sprouts here in Boulder. They have it in Denver. So we do get some good produce, but you kind of have to go when it's fresh and when it comes in. And then you have to pay attention to what you're buying. And I think it's the same thing with Trader Joe's. You have to get smart and you have to look at it. And sometimes it's really fresh and it's great. And other times, it looks old and you don't want to buy it.
Is there anything you wouldn't buy out of fruits and vegetables? Anything that is just not on your list ever, no matter how fresh or organic? Anything you stay away from completely?
No, I trust the organic process and I really like to connect. Like I love to go to the grocery store. And when I walk in, I just, especially like natural grocers, it's so beautiful. And the displays are great. And I just feel like we're so lucky. We're so abundant
Yeah.
in our food choices. Like it's amazing what we have here in Boulder, the selection.
So you buy corn. You buy corn and you eat corn. Everybody says stay away from corn.
Okay, so well, I grew up in Nebraska, and and when I go to the farmers market in the summertime, I will buy their organic um, corn, and it's so delicious. And so I'll have it like a few times because it's like a treat. It's so good.
Yeah.
But I don't typically buy corn. Um, if I'm going to have a corn tortilla or something, I like the sprouted organic corn tortillas.
Any fruits like tomatoes? A lot of people say stay away from tomatoes. Are you good with tomatoes?
I am. I love
Yeah.
tomatoes.
Okay.
And, I know that a lot of the solanine and that's in it, which is supposed to be the toxic ingredient, it's more in the stem and,
Nobody.
where it connects into the tomato. So I'll cut that off. But, I like it. It's got high lycopene, which is really good, for our eyes. And so I just, I love food and I like to connect with it. I think that's one of the biggest issues is that we've lost our connection with Mother Earth. And that's the thing that I love about the farmers market is you can go and you can connect with the farmers, and it's so beautiful in the way that it's displayed. And I love it. I love the whole experience of seeing what everyone is doing locally. And I also like to eat locally as well, and then seasonally, so that's when you're going to get the freshest produce
See
is
what
if you
you
eat
see.
seasonally. Hmm.
Well, you're making me more passionate about going to the grocery store because I Instacart. You probably, do you know what Instacart is?
Of course, I know.
If I looked in your freezer, I would not see any frozen vegetables.
You would see frozen blueberries.
Okay, frozen blueberries.
Yeah, I love blueberries for the polyphenols. They're really good to help feed Akkermansia, which is, it is the main strain that maintains the mucosal lining in our gut. So, I love all of, the polyphenols and just, getting organic blueberries, and I use them in smoothies. And, if I'm making, like, I love amaranth, which is a seed, and I'll make amaranth, and I had that for breakfast this morning. It's kind of like a cream of wheat. And so made amaranth and put frozen blueberries in it, and I make my own nut milk. And so I put that on it, and it's really delicious.
Do you have these recipes on your website?
I need to do that.
Yeah.
I have a lot of recipes.
Mhm.
Um, I spend so much time learning and educating myself and working with clients. And I make food all the time. And I'm lazy about recording it. And that's one of my goals is I really want to teach um, perhaps a YouTube channel on how to rejuvenate the microbiome, because the microbiome to me is everything.
Well, let's talk about that. So that's the gut health, and it causes inflammation, and all kinds of things can go wrong. People, I think, underestimate the gut, and we're starting to learn more and more just how important it is. And we had this conversation. Can you tell us what we could do to keep our gut healthy? Some of the kits out there that you could buy to check your gut. And I mean, people could even sign up with you and discuss their gut and what to do to make it better. And would love to hear that. And I know a lot of people would.
Yes, the microbiome is absolutely amazing. And in 2004, I wrote a book called The 14-Day Gourmet Cleanse and Rejuvenation Program. And then I taught workshops for 15 years on how to use food to clean, heal, and repair the body. And there wasn't a lot of research on the microbiome then, but I knew from all my studying and from that book that my brother had given me that all of these ancient cultures had used fermented foods and had used, different kinds of fibers in order to feed the friendly microbes in our gut. So one of the things that I taught people how to make when I taught my cleanse class is um, this drink called Rejuvelac. And I taught people how to sprout buckwheat and then how to ferment it using probiotics, and then how you could make, different drinks that would replenish the gut. And since then, science has come a long way. And I think we really have a much better understanding of how important our microbiome is to our health, because these microbes do so many amazing things for us. They basically orchestrate everything that's happening in the body. They help us with all of our detoxification. There's a subset of the microbiome called the estrobolome, which is basically the aspect of our hormonal system that carries an intelligence that helps us detoxify our estrogen. And that is huge because hormones are chemical messengers that basically run our entire body. So, really looking at how our body detoxifies estrogen is a very, very important thing, especially for women. Men too,
Mhm.
but especially for women. And this is the book that I'm writing because most people don't know about the estrobolome. Most people are like, what's that? And it's the hormonal intelligence that's part of our microbiome.
So you wouldn't even have to be on any hormone replacement as a woman if you could get this figured out in your body.
Well, you know, I'm not saying don't do hormone replacement therapy because, I think it can be beneficial for a lot of women. As you go through perimenopause, we know that estrogen is important for our bone health, for our brain health. Um, it helps to stabilize our hormones because when we go through perimenopause and menopause, estrogen levels drop, they tank, and so it can compromise our bone health. So, the thing that I think is important is to start to understand, what's happening in the body that we're not able to get rid of excess estrogen. And if you look at our environment, that's where a lot of these xenoestrogens are coming from that cause estrogen dominance. So, the chemicals that are sprayed on our food, the couple that with all the antibiotics, the overuse of antibiotics. I mean, I'm not opposed to an antibiotic if you have to have it, but then you need to replenish the microbiome,
With the
the
probiotic.
estrobolome. Yes. And the other thing I think is really important to understand is that we don't have the ability to break down fiber. That is the job of all of the microbiome, the strains of microbes that live in our gut. So, when you look at back in the 1950s when they started creating all of these processed foods, we lost a lot of the fiber. And so pathogens love processed foods. They love sugars. They can survive, glyphosate. And glyphosate is one of the biggest issues because in 1970 it was patented
Mm.
and it was sprayed all over the wheat because it helped to dry the wheat out so that the farmers could harvest it. It also increased their yield. But what it did is it destroyed all of our keystone microbes in our gut. And the keystone microbes, when we feed them fiber, they make these short chain fatty acids that are anti inflammatory. And we need them because that's what's going to really keep us healthy. And so it's really important to reestablish the keystone microbes that work in the gut and that also support the estrobolome. They help us detoxify all of these xenoestrogens.
So for somebody just starting off, and I don't want to get, you know, too complicated and make, them have anxiety about how they're going to get their health in check and their gut. What is the first thing that they could do? Is it a simple probiotic they could buy? I mean, vitamins aren't as good as, aren't good for you as we think. I have something called Prove It. Have you ever heard the app Prove It? So basically, you could take a picture of your any vitamin and it will tell you what's good in it, what's bad, or if it's just a sham. And it's like pretty amazing. So what would you ask or what would you tell somebody? The first step to get your gut in check.
Well, I do microbiome testing, stool
Mhm.
samples. I use Vibrant Wellness. And when you look at a stool sample, it gives you all kinds of markers. You can look and see how pathogenic overgrowth, you can look at ratios, you can look at diversity of microbes in your gut, you can look at amounts of these microbes. Will tell you if you have an overgrowth of candida. um, so many different markers. Like, are you making enough digestive enzymes so that you can, get all the nutrients from your food? There are different tests that also look at your metabolic health. Are you able to utilize all of your antioxidants? Or are all these free radicals just building up inside your body and you're not able to make enough glutathione, which is the number one antioxidant for the liver?
So when you get a test back, you just give them a protocol of this is what you need to do.
Do an analysis of, whatever the tests are. So basically, the way that I work is I send people a questionnaire, a jot form. They fill it out, they send it back to me. Okay, so then I look at the jot form, then I meet with them again and I tell them, okay, these are the tests that I recommend that we look at. Because they have a hormone zoomer as well. So you can look at your gut health, you can look at your hormones, you can look at oxidative stress, you can look at food sensitivities, you can do a neural zoomer. It all just kind of depends on, what exactly we need to look at. And I go off of, like different symptoms that people may have, like, oh, I'm not sleeping at night, or I have gas, I have bloating, I have weight gain, menstrual problems, skin problems, migraines, whatever it is. And then we can really start to hone in on these are the tests I think we should look at. Then I do an analysis and I set up a protocol for people. So, I mean, and these are functional medicine tests. They're not covered by insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things, that people can do is you can go get like a blood work panel, which is also like a mirror of what's going on in the microbiome. So you can look at, all these different markers, but to me, it's not a checklist. It's more looking at the overall picture of what's happening. And a lot of it, in my opinion, comes down to detoxification. Like, how well are you able to detoxify old cholesterol, old neurotransmitters, old estrogen? Because when it comes to estrogen, the liver will mark it for, okay, this is old estrogen and it needs to be removed. And so it's put in like a package. Okay, marked, this needs to be removed. So one of the markers that I look at is high levels of an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. Because if you have high levels of that, basically what's happening is that the pathogens in your gut are overproducing an enzyme that basically unties the package and releases the old estrogen back into the body and it's reabsorbed. So our bodies are really smart and they don't want a bunch of toxic substances that can get to our vital organs. So they start putting these toxins into fat tissues. And that's why it's just like more and more estrogen, more and more toxic buildup. The fat tissue actually becomes its own endocrine system. And then you have a lot of toxic buildup in the body. So a big part of that is, looking at the biomarkers. Are you able to make enough short chain fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory? Are you able to detoxify metabolites that are old, or xenoestrogens, like the things that really harm our bodies and can be recycled?
So,
So I would tell people, I think I would go, you can go get a blood test. You can kind of start looking at things, and just to see, like, where your thyroid's at, like if you have low iron levels, if you have low vitamin D levels. But all of this is really just a reflection of what's going on in your microbiome, which is at the root cause of all of these health issues.
So, how often would you recommend somebody get blood work?
Once a year, I think if you're relatively healthy, but if you've got like a bunch of markers that come back, then I would say definitely you want to look at your microbiome. Do some stool testing and do some other functional medicine tests just to get to the root cause of what's really happening in the body.
So,
And that's what I like to look at.
in most labs, what would you say doctors miss? The most important thing that they miss? Like, let's just say internal medicine, not a holistic doctor.
I think they miss looking at the big picture of the person. Like I don't think you can just isolate like one thing and
So, the
say,
thyroid.
yeah, you've got a low thyroid, let's put you on thyroid medication. What's causing that? That's where I like to look at um let's go to the root cause. Let's look at your diet. Let's look at your sleep patterns. Let's look at your circadian rhythm. Let's look at your stress levels. Um, there, just like your cleaning products, your skin products. It's it's not the easiest thing in the world to actually live a really healthy lifestyle.
An all-day job.
It is an all-day job.
Yeah.
And it's really important to put your health first. I think, we live in a society that causes a lot of stress and raises a lot of cortisol. And cortisol, basically, if you're living with the pedal to the metal, you're for women, you're going to burn out your adrenal glands. So when you go through menopause and your ovaries aren't making enough estrogen, well, the estrobolome is going to really help to make sure that some of the estrogen gets recycled so that you don't have all of those issues, of going through menopause with all the hot flashes and, the bone health issues and heart issues. So, I just think it's really important to, um, look at the whole lifestyle of what's happening. And cortisol will also destroy the gut, the mucosal lining of the gut. And once you have a leaky gut, then you're going to get undigested food particles in there. You're going to get an overactive immune system, which is going to trigger autoimmune diseases, histamine responses, all kinds of skin issues, migraines. So, making sure that the gut lining is intact is really important. And that's where you can take acromencia and you eat a lot of polyphenols. And, I know that, just telling people eat fiber can be difficult because if you have an overgrowth of pathogens and you just start to eat fiber, you can feed pathogens will basically eat about anything. And that's where a lot of people, oh yeah, I want to increase my fiber, but then they get bloating and gas and they have a lot of issues.
And they blame it on the fiber. What about parasites? Since we're talking about the gut, how big of a part do parasites play?
Well, they can, if you have a parasite, it can definitely wreak havoc on your system. Um, and again, that's where Gut Zoomer is going to come in. It's going to tell you if you have a parasite. If you've traveled outside of the country a lot and you've been in third world countries and, you've picked up parasites along the way, well, you have to address that, of course, because, pathogens and parasites basically steal our nutrition from us. So it has to be addressed if you really, really want to be healthy. So I think it's really about starting to understand your own body. One of the things that I've learned working with thousands of people over all of these years is that there's no one perfect diet. I think there's really as many diets on the planet as there are people.
Yeah.
And I also think that our diet can shift. Like I have been mostly a vegetarian throughout my life. When I was pregnant, I was like, I gotta eat some buffalo. I want
Hmm.
some fish. And I think and chicken. And I think it's more important to listen to your body when it comes to your diet and, figure out what really makes you feel good.
But don't listen to your body if it says eat the chocolate cake.
Well,
Kidding.
I think you're right. I think if you're eating chocolate cake, I think our cravings come from pathogenic overgrowth because they love sugar and they love processed food and they keep us addicted to
Yeah.
those types of foods. So, I mean, it was a big deal for me to quit sugar and to quit alcohol, which is fermented sugar.
I want to talk about alcohol in a second because that's a big one. Uh, but what foods would you recommend staying away from altogether, and what foods have the biggest, like, they make the biggest difference quickly if you're trying to get healthy? Blueberries, I heard, are great. We talked about corn a little bit. Like, if you can just give me three things to just try to stay away from, and three things to try to add to your diet. Like, I hate blueberries. I hate fruit. But if you tell me blueberries are going to make me as beautiful as you are at your age, then I'm going to start eating blueberries.
Beautiful too. So, whatever you're doing is working. Um, okay, stay away from processed food
Yeah,
and junk food and seed oils
seed oil.
and sugar. Sugar is, I know that's kind of like the first drug that we give our kids. And that's what happened to me. And if you just get addicted to sugar, it's just going to mess with all your glucose levels.
What about raw sugar? Could you have raw sugar in a coffee or something like that? Do you like raw sugar?
I'm not really a fan of sugar. It
Yeah.
took me years to get that monkey off my back. And so, you know, like at the farmer's market, like if I like to use stevia as, or low hand go or something that doesn't mess with my glucose and my insulin levels. I like to make sure that they're stable. And so, I have basically weaned myself off of sugar. And, I know that, a lot of people, they like sweets and, so I would say like, eating, like making energy balls using dates and using nut butters and things that are going to slow down the whole glycemic load on the body. So that's something more that I would recommend. If you're going to eat chocolate, like eat honey mamas, they are made with honey, but at least it's, got some vitamins and, some nutrients in it. And it's all handmade. So, seed oils, number one, is I think it's awful because a lot of these processed oils, you have to look at the cell wall. And if you're eating a lot of the canola oil and a lot of, these processed um, PUFAs, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, basically, and you're not getting like good sources of saturated fat, then the cell wall is leaky, and you're not going to have like a strong cell. So, eating, like I love grass-fed butter or ghee, which I think is great, and coconut oil. And we need saturated fats because they're at the base of all of our steroid hormones. And we want to make healthy cholesterol and we want to make healthy hormones. So I would say just staying away from seed oils, stay away from all processed foods and, and processed sugars. Organic sugar, I think, is much better than, heavily processed sugar. But again, I think it kind of depends on the person.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Would you recommend fasting for 3 days? There's this stuff all over TikTok and things like that, that basically you do a fast for 3 days, just a water fast, and it just kills everything and your body sort of just resets. Do you believe in that? Have you ever researched that or
I mean, I think fasting can be a good thing to help get rid of an overgrowth of pathogens. And I think you can take some ketone supplements to help from starving to, feeling like you're starving to death. The thing that I'm always concerned about with people who do like 3-day water fasting, which I've done
Mhm.
um, in the past, and it was actually the reason that I wrote the 14-day gourmet cleanse and rejuvenation program, is that a lot of people have a buildup of toxic waste in the body. So when you do a 3-day fast, your body goes into cleaning house and just starts taking all these stored toxins that are in the body and just throwing them into the bloodstream. And that's a huge impact on the liver because the liver has to go through all of these detox pathways in order to convert toxins into water soluble toxins that we can pee out or convert them, into um, other types um, of byproducts that can be, eliminated through the bile and out through the back door. So you have to have a lot of B vitamins. You have to have the right amino acids. You need the right amount of minerals in order to detoxify everything. So if if you're not if you don't have a lot of nutrients in your body, it can be a lot. And the liver can be like, whoa, what is all this? Which is why people start getting headaches, their blood sugar drops, they feel horrible. And so that's one of the biggest problems, I think. So, to me, if you're going to do some kind of a cleanse, I'd rather see it be a food cleanse and that you have to prepare your body to go through some kind of a water cleanse. And if you are going to do a water cleanse, I think you need to be resting. I think you need to be meditating. I think you need to be in nature and really taking care of yourself and making sure that you're eliminating properly, because once a lot of people stop eating, then they don't eliminate, and so their whole elimination system gets thrown off and you're not getting rid of all that crap.
if you were going to do the water cleanse, the 3 day, and you can do it. I always fail at like hour 15 and then I have an In-N-Out burger. I haven't made it yet. And then I just like start to like just eat crap that I shouldn't be eating. Would you do it once a month, the 3 day cleanse? Would you do it once a year?
I have to say, I wouldn't personally recommend doing a
Okay.
3-day water fast unless, like I said, you have prepared yourself. Like you've done like a food cleanse and you've done like a 1-day water fast. And then there's also the issue of, how do I come off the fast? Because this was always the biggest problem I've seen with people is, okay, I got through my water cleanse. Now, how do I reintroduce food? Because if you just break your fast with just going out there and eating whatever it is that you want or that you're craving, you're going to undo all that work.
Well, you're probably going to say they're all important, but out of all of those that you mentioned, which one is the most important? I feel like at my age right now, it's sleep.
Well, yes, sleep is very, very important because that's where we do all the cleaning, the healing, the repairing. We get into an anabolic part of circadian rhythm and our body is rebuilding. But it's not going to rebuild if you don't have all the nutrition in there. And, our gut microbes are they're stimulating a lot of the neurotransmitters and they're helping to make a lot of the neurotransmitters as well. So it's really hard to isolate one particular thing. Um, I think meditation is huge. And I work with people on vagal toning because the nervous system and what's really driving us through the day is really important. If we're living in those high cortisol states, then we're breaking down the gut lining. We're not able to make hormones properly. We're not able to make digestive enzymes so we can digest our food. We're not eliminating properly. So it's really hard to just zone in on one thing and do this one thing. And everybody is so different that I think it's really important to look at the whole person and what's going on with you, and then start to block in all of these different things. And it's a journey to understand yourself and to really love yourself on a deep level, which I think is also really important.
Well, and I was also told my adrenals were burned out and you can't get them back once they're burned out. Is that right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the body is a miracle. I think the body knows how to heal and how to do everything that we need to do. And I think part of that is the microbiome, because I think they carry an intelligence and they're orchestrating everything that's happening in our body, down to the mitochondria and our energy system. So I think it's reestablishing these keystone microbes that produce all the short chain fatty acids, that regulate detoxification, that are regulating our hormonal systems, the gut brain axis. It's all tied in there because the single cell microorganisms got together with bacteria a long time ago, and that's what we evolved from. So, I know we've all been taught, oh, be very afraid of bacteria. And we all, we're spraying Lysol everywhere and killing, all of these friendly microbes that are really essential to our life, to staying young, to feeling good in our body. Um, and I think it's really important to stay connected to the earth, to get outside, to be in nature, because we're picking up microbes when we're outside. When we go to the farmer's market and we buy these organic vegetables that have a little dirt on them, and then we rinse them off, and we're getting microbes from the soil that basically help us replenish the gut.
How do you wash your vegetables? Do you use white vinegar? Do you buy the vegetable spray? I even had this device that you threw in the water and it cleaned it.
I try not to go too crazy on just cleaning them, especially when they come from a farmer's market. Um, I rinse them and I'll use a little apple cider vinegar on them if they seem like they're really dirty, but I'm not like a clean freak.
So can you tell me a little bit? Okay, hair loss. Why does it happen? I mean, is there something you could put your finger on that, some people will say it's hereditary. They'll say it's diet. They'll say it's menopause or aging. What do you think the cause of hair loss is?
Well, I think it can be multiple things. And again, I think it can be tracked back to, it can be thyroid issues, you know, like low hypothyroidism. Um, it can be, hormonal, which thyroid is hormonal. It can be nutrient deficiencies. It can be high stress.
Yeah.
So it just, again, it comes back to the individual and what's going on with that person. So,
I was looking for the miracle answer. You were going to say, just get your gut tested and there's a vitamin you could take.
well, definitely, I think that if you've identified that your thyroid is low, low on iodine, you can definitely take some iodine, and you can look at nutrition deficiencies that you might have, different minerals. Also, collagen, I think, is great. Um, I think it's very important if you're going to take collagen that you take it with like a half a lemon squeezed into water, because it will increase the absorption of collagen, which I think is really important for our skin, our hair, our nails, and also for all of our connective tissue. So I like collagen. I think that's great. Mineral silica is also really important for skin and hair health. So, and I think hormones are definitely, which all ties back into the microbiome.
And creatine, everybody's jumping on the creatine bandwagon. I mean, it's necessary at this age, right?
I like creatine, and
Oh, creatine, sorry.
I think it's really important. 5 grams for the muscles. And then I think you really want to exercise to make sure, that your muscles are taking it up properly. You have to make sure that you're drinking enough water or you're going to get muscle cramps. And then 5 grams for your brain. I think it's really, really good for brain health. Um, the most important thing with creatine is don't take it. Like some people say, oh, have it with my coffee. You never want to take creatine with some kind of acid. You wouldn't want to take it with your lemon water, like like you would take with your iron supplement to help with the absorption of iron. So I think creatine is best taken, after you've eaten food. And I think that you shouldn't take it all at once. You should break it up. So if you're going to do 10 grams, take, 10 in the morning with breakfast or your smoothie or whatever you're having. And then, did I say 10? I meant 5. And then 5 in the afternoon, again, like maybe after lunch. I wouldn't take it too late in the afternoon or evening because it can be stimulating to the brain. It can interrupt sleep.
What do you think? What lifestyle choices age people the quickest? Probably alcohol, right?
Alcohol, sleep disruption, stress, um, yeah, eating processed foods. Um, yeah.
Women love to have their wine and things like that. If you did want to have a cocktail, what do you recommend? You know, you're probably going to say none because we've had this conversation before.
Well, you have to think about alcohol as a sterilizer.
Yeah.
So if you want to sterilize your gut, you know, and it's also not good for your liver. It
Mhm.
uses up B vitamins to process the alcohol. So I'm an advocate of just not. And like kombucha, like just come up with that something else that's gonna, relax you. Because and I think alcohol it's a really difficult one because we've all been socialized with it. And we've all, it does help relax us. And so it's definitely, it is going to help relax us. And so there are benefits to that. Um, so I would say try to find other ways to relax and to unwind. And one of the things that I had to realize in my body is that when we're socializing with people, I'm there to connect with that person. I'm there to, be in the moment, to hear what they have to say, to have an interaction, and to be real with that person. So it's not really about the alcohol and it's not really about the food. It's about, being there in community with people and being present and to have a nice, pleasant exchange with that person.
Not dancing on tables.
Well, I still love to dance and I dance a lot. And and I might dance on a table, but I know it wouldn't be when I was drinking alcohol. It would just be because I wanted to have fun. So, but I kind of have this saying like I drank enough alcohol in high school, in college, and when I was a flight attendant to last me a lifetime.
What? Okay, so my husband loves sourdough bread. He thinks that, if you're going to eat bread, that's the bread you should eat. I mean, obviously, when you see don't feed the ducks anymore, you can't even feed them the bread that we used to feed them. That's like pretty telling. So, do you like sourdough bread? Are you good with that? I mean, I'm not going to home make it because it's very hard to do. I've tried it. What do you think about sourdough bread? That was a question for my husband.
I like the gluten free, and there's actually a brand that they sell at Sprouts and also King Supers. It's called Simple Needs. It's
Okay.
gluten free and it's sourdough. So we get that, and I'll make, toast out of that, bread out of that. I did go to a really great restaurant in Denver where they make really super delicious gluten-free sourdough bread. I'm just not a fan of gluten. I think it's toxic, and I think that it really ruins the gut lining.
What is the biggest myth you think that people say I'm healthy? What do you think that is? Them taking vitamins, working out, probably eating processed food?
Well, yeah, definitely processed food, and thinking that, oh, I'm gonna just because I worked out, now I can go eat all this junk,
Mhm.
because it's just it doesn't really work like that. So, or I can get by on 4 hours of sleep or 3 hours of sleep. I'm good. I think you're fooling yourself if you are thinking that you're going to do that. I think, you know, the whole idea with all the biohacking, with getting intravenous, I think you have to build your digestive system and you have to build your microbiome. That's the most important thing, because back to the microbiome, they're doing everything to orchestrate our health. And I heard a woman at a lab say, "Well, our digestive systems are so broken down, it's the only way we can get our nutrients is IV."
Hmm.
And I help people rebuild their digestive system.
What do you think about Botox?
Scares me.
Why does it scare you?
Well,
I mean, it is botulism, but
yeah, it's dead botulism. I don't know. I like the idea of beauty comes from within, everything that we were talking about, like connecting with ourselves and exercising and, getting the right diet. And I think it's okay to have a wrinkle.
so what do you think? Is there a miracle face cream that's like natural? Don't tell me Noxema or oil of Olay.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting is that Vibrant Wellness, they actually have a test where you do a saliva test, and then they match your skin to peptides,
Hmm.
and they'll make a peptide formula for you.
Wow.
And yeah, that just matches your skin identity. So
That's amazing because everybody's into the peptides now. Again, they're doing it like the Ozempic, where they're doing things that I don't think you should be doing, and then they're going to get into trouble later.
yeah, I agree. And I mean, and I do think that there are some peptides that can help people in terms of, helping to, um, replenish the gut lining, but you still have to rebuild and you have to feed that microbiome. And I know that some people do get benefits from peptides. I personally haven't, you know, done that. I haven't done any injections, peptides, none of that. I'm just really involved in, the regeneration, rejuvenation
And
of
all of
the
it, like you said, it's
microbiome,
not
and
one
and working
thing.
with hormones, really, because I think our hormones are really, really important. They are the chemical messengers that run our entire body, and these microbes orchestrate the hormones and work with the liver to detoxify them. So I think for women, it's really important, like, to take care of the estrobolome as young as you possibly can. Like, all the way through, like eating super healthy, making sure that you are feeding your microbiome, making sure that you're able to detoxify hormones and recirculate hormones that should be recirculated back into the body.
I wish there was just one pill you could take for your gut just clean it all out or do whatever it needs to do. I mean, because if you live in other places, like let's say you live in Ohio or somewhere, they don't have a natural grocers. They don't really have holistic health, like where you can go see a doctor like yourself, but we can reach you online. And so I'm really excited. So last question, this is an important one. Um, they used to call it the change of life. Nobody talked about menopause. It was very taboo back in the day. So what can you tell women that are experiencing perimenopause or um, menopause? What can you tell them? Like, what are just some easy things that you could do to get through it? Any like miracle things, or that's just
Take care of the estrobolome. Really important.
and
And
that is just
start doing it early, which is basically making sure that you have the right microbes in your gut so that you're not overproducing the beta glucuronidase, which releases all this estrogen back into your system. And then storing all this estrogen in your body so that you gain all this weight when you go through menopause. And it's so important because these microbes are also important for stimulating the GLP-1, and which is a hormone that regulates all of our appetite, our weight. um it is such an important hormone. To me, it goes back to the gut, to the gut, to the gut, and it goes back to diet, 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 and lifestyle practices.
so you would go as far to say that things are not hereditary, like rheumatoid arthritis. There's a test you could take for that, right,
Well,
to see if you have
you
it.
know, I well, so our microbes have like 150 times more genetic potential than our own DNA.
Mm.
So it's being in right relationship with your body and with these microbes, and starting as early as possible to understand what's happening in your gut, what's happening in your digestive system, what's happening in your elimination system. So there's no quick fix.
Yeah,
You're not going to biohack your way out of this. I'm sorry. That's probably the biggest myth.
yeah. That
you know,
that was the answer I was looking for. Was just a
it's going to
miracle.
take commitment,
Yes,
you know? And
everything
and
does.
yeah, everything does. And if
It's
you want to get good
worthwhile.
at something, you got to practice it every day.
Yeah. Okay, this is a fun round to get to know you. What do you do to relax?
Dance,
That's relaxing.
paint,
Mhm.
um, Pilates, yoga. I meditate every morning.
What do you avoid completely? We know alcohol is one of them. Is there something else you just like
All
avoid?
processed food.
Just all processed food.
Yeah, and I don't eat sugar.
Okay. And then what scares you the most? Is there anything that scares you the most about health that we're maybe overlooking or, people aren't paying attention to?
The thing that scares me the most is the assault on our environment.
Yes.
That scares me the most. How rapidly we're losing our bees.
Yeah.
The assault on our oceans, and the waste buildup on this planet, and all the chemicals on our food. That's the stuff that scares me. And it scares me for my kids and my grandkids.
When I see a bee in the pool, I save them. So save a bee.
Oh, I save bees all the
Me
time.
too. And sometimes they come back to life. Like you think, oh, one's a goner, and then you put it out in the sun, and they come back to life.
They come back.
Yeah. Um, okay, leave us one thing. I know you probably want to leave us with a lot of things, but maybe just if you could leave us with one thing, what would that be?
Take care of your microbiome
And talk kindly to yourself and gently.
and love yourself deeply.
Get to know yourself. I might go on a date with myself tonight and I might have a glass of wine.
Okay,
Yeah.
make sure that it doesn't have sulfates in it,
Yeah.
that it's organic.
I
Do
agree.
and just love your life, enjoy your life. Don't be too hard on yourself. Be gentle.
Tell us your website and your book. Well, you have two books. So the one that's coming out and the one that is already out.
Hormonal Harmony
Mhm.
is my new one, and I have the 14-day gourmet cleanse and rejuvenation program. And you can find all of this information on my website, which is askeloise.com.
And hopefully one day soon, we're going to have recipes and
Yes,
face masks and all the great things that we talked
all the
about.
good stuff. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, it was so good talking with you. And I'm going to do my survey and we're going to be in contact very soon. And I'm going to get myself in check so I look as good as you.
Oh
I'm
my God, you're
great.
so beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate
Well,
you and this conversation. It was lovely.
thanks for listening to Unfiltered. And remember, the truth hurts, but it also heals. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And now it's time for the pup of the podcast.